Good morning. This is Dr. Matthew Dunn, host of The Future of Email. My guest today, coming from Austin, Texas, Jen Furukawa, co-founder, is that correct, of Prehook?
Sorry, Gen Furukawa. But
Yeah,
yeah, co-founder.
thanks. Sorry about that. I should have asked you.
That's all right.
Sir.
That's all
Jen.
right.
So
Uh,
Prehook, tell people a bit about Prehook for starters, just for context.
yeah, sure. So Prehook is a quiz platform for Shopify merchants. We help merchants basically have a 24/7 sales associate on their site. So ask a few questions, find out what somebody's challenges, goals, interests, preferences are. And then from there, you can provide a far more personalized custom experience, which translates to accelerating list growth, improving conversion rate, and capturing zero-party data, or data that customers proactively and willingly share with you.
Yeah, zero-party data. By the way, you did that too well by a long shot. Like, clearly you've got this dialed in.
Oh, no.
I'm teasing you. Why do quizzes get, response that you'd never get if you said fill in this form?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think because a quiz naturally plays to our human interest in learning more about ourselves and discovery. And then there's this element of fun and engagement that comes with the quiz, as opposed to when you step into the dentist's office or doctor's office, hey, fill out this intake form.
Yeah.
And then it's like, it's very clinical, it's very dry. But the way that you can, as a brand, ask of your customers a few questions, like say, for example, a wine brand like First Leaf or Wink. They are wine brands, and wine is it can be very advanced and esoteric and a little bit off-putting for those that don't know about it. But the brand's mission is to make wine more welcoming, and obviously they want to cast as wide a net as possible.
Sure.
If you're able to say, hey, do you like, tannins in your wine, that's hard for some people to understand. I don't really know. But do you like chocolate, or do you like coffee? Do you like caramel? Like, what flavors do you like? And then all of a sudden it becomes a far easier question to answer. And that becomes a proxy for, oh, okay, so you might like these fruit forward wines, or this type of wine. And so I think that's where a quiz can stand out, by making it more accessible and easy to understand. And then you're able to, with your expert authority of whatever it is that you're selling, represent, like, hey, this is the product that we recommend for you, Matthew, because you answer these questions. Right. And then from there, and this is where it plays into your expertise, is you can lay out, here's a brand story, here are the benefits of the product specific to the explicitly stated problems that you have. And then you're able to craft a far more compelling message and send better offers and content based on the data that you're gathering.
We're in a funny stage in a sort of the fit of digital in our lives. Post-pandemic, everyone got shoved 10 years into the future, where, broadly speaking, waking up into various levels in various countries to the privacy issues of digital, and that's starting to change what's legal and permitted and so on. But I also sense that there's some blast shields up by all of us as end consumers. What will I say yes to? What will I fill in? What will I allow? What will I even take time to do? And I love the sort of sidestep effect of, hey, we'd just like to know a bit about you so we can help you better, which it sounds like is the thrust of Prehook. Quizzes have been around for a while. What made you say we can do it more, better, newer?
Yeah. So great question. It was, I co-founded Prehook with two friends who I'd been working with since 2015. We were part of the founding team of Jungle Scout, which is an Amazon product research tool, help people find products to sell on Amazon, validate that there is in fact demand and low competition. So yeah, we've been working together for 4 years, strictly in the Amazon seller space. And we'd always wanted to do things on our own, to build and launch a SaaS on our own. And then when exploring different ideas, realized that the challenges that an Amazon seller faces are very different than what a Shopify seller faces, in that an Amazon listing is very crafted for SEO. So you know what the search query is that somebody's searching for, and then you're going to build a listing specifically around uh, selling blue water bottles, for example, and the benefits of that and the features of that. But if you're a Shopify brand, you don't necessarily know why people are coming to your store or what they're looking for, what challenges they're trying to solve for.
Mhm.
But even if you're just able to capture a few simple questions, you can add so much more context and then personalize the experience around that. So we did speak with a handful of merchants when we were exploring this. Like, is this something that's actually worth building? And a lot of the merchants did need that. This is also before iOS 14.5, where the landscape of marketing as a whole is changing a lot, where
Yes.
consumer privacy and data is harder to access and capture.
Yeah.
And the traditional playbook of e-commerce brands running paid media campaigns and having a low cost of acquisition is changing as targeting becomes harder, cost per click increases. Never mind all the supply chain issues of the
Yeah.
past year or so.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it was something where Typeform was not really an ideal fit, and some brands were using Typeform.
Yeah.
But there are some shortcomings there with how it integrates with a different tech stack of an e-commerce brand.
Mhm.
And so we started building it in 2020, launched in early 2021. And I mean, like I said, there are some macro factors of the e-commerce marketers world that have been a tailwind for us, and
Nice.
made the necessity of building a direct relationship far more important.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. You mentioned Typeform. If for someone who's listening doesn't sort of live in the space that we're probably spend way too much time in, Typeform is a terrific, great looking, generic uh, question and answer form. It's not as specific and targeted, I think, is what you're doing. And as you said, integration is quite key. Shopify user is not necessarily, it's not all they do in their day job is work in Shopify. Is that fair?
Yeah. That is totally true.
I'm gonna give us a bit of a straw man account, and I'll do a local call out at the same time. I spotted an article the other day because my news feed in the morning, the town I live in, Bellingham, Washington, pops up, and I saw a headline that a small one man company here had won the top hot sauce in the world, and there are nutcases for hot sauce, right? So I'm walking through the farmers market 2 days later, great farmers market, and I went, wait a minute, that's him. So I walk over and I chat with the guy, Funky's Hot Sauce. Super nice guy. He's the guy who makes the hot sauce. And I said, hey, congrats, saw you in the news. He was like, oh my word, our website just blew up. Like hundreds of orders from all over the place came pouring in because there are hot sauce nuts in the world. And I said, well, what's it built on? He said, oh, well, we had blah, blah, blah and GoDaddy and we're sending email and Outlook. And I said, oh, wow. Looking at Shopify now, are you? And he said, yes. So, talking with someone who's about to jump into that, what's becoming one of the standard ecosystems for businesses to extend their reach into e-commerce as well. And the questions he was asking, I realized he's gonna he's gonna benefit, but he's gonna have a ton to learn in that
Yeah.
complicated ecosystem. As easy as they make it, he's still gonna have a ton to learn, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely would agree with that. And ideally, Shopify is handling a lot of that, the back end operations to make
Yeah,
it easier in
that's the
terms of like
idea.
the technical element. Yeah.
Yeah,
But there's always a steep learning curve.
yeah,
But with the brand, and this is what I've noticed with a lot of Shopify merchants is a lot of outsourced work. And so that's where services like yours come in, where an agency which has a deep expertise in, say, email or paid ads or CRO or
right,
influencer
right.
acquisition, like pick and choose what it is, and then all of a sudden you're kind of like not as beholden with a full W-2 employee, but you're still able to get those needs met. But yeah, I think Shopify is far more scalable and stable a solution than some
Well, e-com's matured a lot in the last couple of decades, and there were points where things like taking payments was a huge technical exercise, and then Stripe came along and said, "Yeah, it should be 3 lines of code. Let's make that simple." And they've grown to match. I'm a little intrigued that you went from the Amazon ecosystem to the Shopify ecosystem, because in some ways they're not necessarily competitors, but there's definitely they definitely are going to bump into each other out there in the world. The one by one, many Shopify merchants versus the big one, Amazon as a merchant, and the people who work within that ecosystem in Amazon's brand. What was the big aha coming from Amazon to Shopify?
From my perspective, Amazon is, I think one of the biggest challenges of an Amazon seller is to actually build a brand. And like I was saying earlier, I mean, it's become like one of the biggest search engines. So people who know what they want will go to Amazon to search. And I think the stat was like 50% of people, once they know what they want to buy, it's
Yeah,
not necessarily like so much for discovery
yeah,
or shopping, but it's for specified search.
yeah.
And the challenge is that it becomes very saturated. And so we've seen an internationalization of who the seller is, which largely means that, and when I was starting in 2015, in selling on Amazon, and I did sell a product on Amazon, not successfully, but the challenge is you work with a supplier often in China,
Mm.
and you buy it for a third of what the retail price is. You import it, you sell it, you market it on Amazon, and then you take your 30% profit. It becomes a little bit of a race to the bottom. And so once suppliers start selling themselves to
Yeah,
cut out the middleman, who
yeah,
I was,
yeah,
all of a sudden it becomes harder to compete.
yeah.
So the value of a brand off of Amazon, like where people are driving their own traffic, owning their own list, owning their own audience,
Right,
is so critical. And so it's a different marketing challenge. And I think in some ways, Amazon is a necessary channel that brands would use, and it all falls under the umbrella of e-commerce. But I think a lot of it, ideally, and you have to ask, merchant to merchant, it might differ, but ideally, they might prefer a direct to consumer sale as opposed to through
right.
Amazon, just because you're losing a lot of the customer data, which means it becomes harder to drive repeat purchases. Margins might be lower because Amazon's taking their cut.
Yeah,
Uh, so it's good to augment sales maybe, but ideally, people are owning their sales, owning their relationship.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear you say it. My hot sauce example fits here in my mind, in that what I'd encourage the Janet Funky's hot sauce to do is become a direct, known brand to the folks in the world who are nuts about hot sauces. If he's just another bottle they bought on a big store, let's say Amazon, then he's going to be competing for their attention again next month versus, oh yeah, that guy. I get his email or I get his text messages, and my gosh, that was great. What's he got that's new? And like, you get a little brain space, you get a
Yeah.
little bit in the attention economy, and that's hard to do when you're just a product in a big conglomerated store. I think that's what you're
Yeah,
saying.
absolutely. The one workaround there is if it's brands, so it might, whether it's a warranty or if it's a hot sauce, maybe it's like, sign up for your $5 discount off your next bottle or something.
Sure.
But often the move there is in the unboxing
Yeah.
phase, you're driving them back to your website to
Yeah.
sign up for something. And at
Yeah.
least then you're opening the channel of communication
Oh,
to capture an email or phone number.
yeah. It's funny. I mean, I'm a long time and loyal Amazon customer for a bunch of reasons, and I admire what they've done greatly. But I'm sympathetic to the challenge of the business that wants to grow beyond that, because um, it's like your gravitational force, right?
Hmm.
Amazon. And I've had the unboxing experience you talk about, hey, sign up here, or here's a coupon. And it's really hard to get me to sit down and go, sure, I'll bother. Because it
Yeah.
kind of got commoditized, whatever it was, probably got commoditized a little bit, just in, oh yeah, here's the Amazon Prime truck and there's the box. And oh yeah, I forgot I ordered that. And I move on to the next. Um, Back to quizzes for a second, and Prehook. I like the sort of pattern interrupt notion of a quiz, because in the email world, there's a lot of talk about getting people just to fill in the sign up form. And, if you go beyond 3 or 4 things you're asking, people will drop off. Well, that's because you're asking them boring stuff that they already know,
Hmm.
not any self-discovery, which was kind of your point. Is there
Yeah.
any feedback in Prehook if I say, yeah, I definitely prefer chocolate over chili? Is it, do you go, whoa, well, gee, you're unusual, or more people prefer chocolate or something like that? Like, how do you enhance that experience so it's beyond just me answering questions?
Well, feature wise, you can definitely make it more tailored and specific with conditional logic. So conditional logic is
Yeah.
basically if then. So
Hmm.
if Matthew says he likes chocolate over vanilla,
Hmm.
you can, give a statement about that. Different brands like Noom, for example. Noom is a weight loss app, so not e-commerce per se, but they have an intake form quiz, and so it's, what are your goals? Where are you at? And then based on the response, there will be a relevant statistic about that. Same
Okay.
with
Yeah.
Hims and Hers, like hair loss brands, like, and that's in some way to create a rapport, or, hey, you're not alone. Like, here's the explicitly stated issue. Here's a solution. But I think these are issues where people there might be some sense of shame or like
Huh.
challenge around it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so it's like, here's your problem, good. And then of course the job of a marketer is to present the solution and the bridge towards their future aspirational self that they want to achieve. So yeah, to answer your question, there's definitely ways to make it like specific to your answers, and then also just have it more of a free flowing conversation, or mimic that free flowing conversation you'd have with a sales associate in person.
Did you have any debates in the development process about trying to do AI driven bot versus structured form?
Well, so that is a little bit on the roadmap. I personally don't love, like, an intercom chat is good. The AI part of it it's a little bit, to me, of a clunky user experience to replicate, like, the
Yeah.
dot dot dot
Yeah.
typing, because
Yeah.
that it's already there. It just seems like a slower thing. And if it's a live chat, that's great. But live chat is a double-edged sword, because if nobody's there and you don't have
Yeah.
the resources to make it
Yeah.
an immediate experience, it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So yeah, the AI part is great, and we do hope to implement AI in terms of what the recommendation is ultimately.
Sure.
And this is ideal for larger brands that have a lot of data
Data.
to build training models off of.
Yes.
But in terms of the chatbot, not yet.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's daunting. Conversation is a lot more complex than we think.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
the second you open the door to converse with me via this little box, people are going to go off the rails, right? They're going to
Yeah.
ask you completely unexpected stuff, and oops, I guess you must be just a dumb AI because your response makes no sense.
Totally. And then you have the challenge of, like, the beauty of a quiz and the data that you're gathering is that it's structured data, so
Structure.
that it's
Agreed. Yeah.
it's easy to manipulate, it's easy to draw insights from, and use, export, do pivot tables, all of this stuff, which is great. For example, if you're doing post-purchase surveys,
Mm.
how did you hear about us?
Hmm.
And so that's critical these days for brands to understand the attribution of their marketing
Yeah.
dollars. So what
Yeah.
channel did you hear from us? Or more specifically, okay, you heard from us on a podcast. Well, which podcast? And so it helps you make these decisions of how to spend more money effectively. Um, and you could even do it for product research. Like, if you are, let's say, like, I don't know, a t-shirt brand, or you're looking, like, what patterns do you like? And so you can create segments of your customers. Say your high value VIP customers. What are you looking for next, or which of these do you need? And so you can do research with your customers, and it's more scalable and easier to ingest if it's structured, as opposed to an open-ended, like, hey, what are you looking for? Because then it requires somebody to go through and do an analysis of that.
Right. Right. Gotcha. Um, One of the things that I'd expect with quizzes is that the question you ask and the answer you get may help you understand a bunch more than is obvious. I mean, to your chocolate and wine example, you're asking me about chocolate, but really you're starting to delve into broader, taste, flavor preferences, not just chocolate
Mhm.
itself, right? Do you help? Does your platform help help that analytical side process?
No, 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 no.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So really, I mean, you can see it and you can see it, you can
Yeah,
visualize it.
yeah,
But in terms of like what to make of it,
yeah.
no, we don't do that as a platform. That's really incumbent on the marketers
On the
themselves.
marketer. Okay.
But I'm happy to jump in and share my thoughts.
Well, no, it's just it'd been interesting because there's a lot of psychology and a lot of design there, right? Asking the question that helps you move that understanding of the customer relationship with them forward. You can't just arbitrarily throw out things. You've got to really think through what do we need to understand in order to do our job and serve them
Mhm.
better. That I'm guessing people go, "Oh, this is a little harder than I thought," frequently.
Yeah.
Cool. Um, Backside post survey, we talked about this a little briefly in the prep. The listeners for this podcast tend to be involved in email and marketing more broadly in some way. What do you see the impact of Prehook and quizzes in that longer term marketing relationship that your customers have? I mean, obviously they're going to be more informed. That's a good piece of it. But what else?
As in like how do
What
quizzes contribute to marketing?
exactly?
Yeah. So it's a lot of the zero party data. So,
Okay.
like well, let's just clarify. Like, so zero party data, of course, is like I'm telling you what I want. Historically, like eh, first party data is easy. That's where a lot of like personalization efforts might be built on.
Hmm.
First party data is tracked passively though. That might be transaction history or how much I've spent. Maybe extracting from that where I live based on the shipping address. Or there's a lot of assumptions that you need to draw from it. And those assumptions might be correct or might not be. Go to second party or third party data, and all of a sudden it's far less accurate because you're buying it. You don't know necessarily like where it came from, or you don't know where Facebook is getting it from, or when they captured this data. And so that's the value. Of course, the closer you get to the source, the more accurate and the more direct insights you can draw from it. But the reason why it's helpful is ultimately, and especially now, I know that you bring personalization kind of like as one of the main things that you're working towards. Personalization is built foundationally on the data that you have about that person, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so that's I think where the main value is. So that extends to improving their email and SMS campaigns by what you're segmenting on, the data points that you're segmenting on.
Mhm.
So no longer do you have to segment based on like VIP customer who spend over $300, and engage in these emails. You can base it on what they're looking for, what challenges they have, how they like to what type of hair they have, all these things that you don't necessarily get,
Yeah.
but they can inform the content that you're sending them. And so all of a sudden you're going to see increased engagement in terms of your communication. So email, click-through rate, conversion rate. So there's statistics, and I think this is from Segment or Accenture on personalization
Mhm.
of that people are willing and want to buy from brands that offer a personalized experience and
Yeah.
are frustrated by brands that cannot offer that personalized
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
So that's where the data that you're gathering is really important to improving your marketing, and especially I think in light of this notion of a customer experience gap. So basically, the customer experience gap is that we as consumers are looking for this personalized experience, but marketers are struggling to deliver on that, whether it is the tooling that they have or the data that they're building their personalization campaigns on. And so our ultimate goal is to help brands capture this data in an easy and scalable way that
Mhm.
adds value to their marketing, yet also creates a better customer experience.
Yeah, you mentioned Segment, now owned by Twilio, fits in the category of CDP customer data platform, and that the rise of that CDP sector tends to suggest that companies are realizing that getting their arms around customer data has a payoff, but that it's hard. It's really
Mhm.
complicated to do, um, and I think frequently I don't think there's a stretch to say a lot of companies would say, well, we don't really know what we know about customers, right? Some stuff in this bucket, some stuff in that bucket. Can we actually take it and 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 use it to craft and tailor what we have to say back to get that boost from personalization that you alluded to? No, it's still too much of a mess because we bought system A, system B, system C. The average marketing org has, I forget what the number is, 70, 80 different vendors in their MarTech stack of course that stuff doesn't all talk
Yeah.
seamlessly. Like, what a mess.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And as consumers, like we're a funny beast, right? I'd really like personalization. No, I'm not going to tell you anything. It'd be like saying, I really want to be friends, but I'm going to wear a mask every time, every time we interact,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's a funny, it's a funny have our cake and eat it too mindset. And back to Amazon for a second. What's intriguing is how ridiculously much they as a company would know about their customers in theory. And I'm sure every time I log in the Amazon page, that's completely tailored by past purchases, browsing history, all that other stuff. I credit Amazon with having kept a fairly light touch on that. Particularly in their email, like their email program, very, very restrained. You ordered this. We won't even say what it is, but it's going to arrive tomorrow. And it's not, would you also like to buy this? And, gee, too bad about your hair getting gray and so on, which they probably know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they don't blast me with it.
Well, they changed that so that in 2016 that they changed their terms of service because merchants could directly send to consumers.
Yeah.
And we had a product at Jungle Scout
Did you?
that helped facilitate reviews.
Ooh.
And it changed. We had to basically overnight change things so that no longer because it was no longer allowed. So the whole impetus of the product changed more so to seeding products at a discount as opposed to asking for reviews. So yeah, the Amazon was as they should, because it is a better consumer experience, is very controlling of how merchants can communicate, and at this point can't really.
It can't really. Yeah. Yeah. Do you find as you're working in the Shopify ecosystem, how's Shopify as a de facto platform for you guys to work with?
From a partner perspective,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, pretty good, pretty good. I mean, there are obviously changes in terms of the APIs to keep
Sure.
up with the listings, but Shopify as a whole has become, I think, very developer friendly. Like for example, last year they used to have a 20% take of all revenue up to $1 million for Shopify apps. They did away with that, so
Wow.
it's a little bit more attractive, and compare that with Apple, which takes 30%. Facebook, I think for their Web3 stuff is taking 50% or plus, so it's friendly in that sense. They do kind of like foster this ecosystem of helping people, making the acquisition of customers a little bit easier with their app store. But there are pros and cons as well.
Yeah. 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 And they have to stay in business. They can't charge everybody zero. So there's that,
Yeah.
on top of it. You mentioned him, so I'll just ask it as succinctly as possible. Is Facebook factor in the world of your service at all?
Well, not directly, but indirectly, in that DTC brand, direct to consumer brands, relied a lot on Facebook and Instagram ads. And as budgets become less clear, or the return on ad spend becomes less clear, and perhaps less profitable, there's a greater emphasis on capturing a lead and capturing the customer data. So in that sense, it has been a little bit of a beneficial thing for us.
This is a turbulent moment in digital commerce, and I'm going to point back to Apple and app tracking transparency, which you already touched on. It's just the free and easy Wild West touch points have been shut down dramatically, and we're seeing the impact in the market. Facebook probably being the poster child for impact in the market, but it's definitely changed it's changed the marketing game for companies from large to small, like dramatically. And this is pretty recent. I know ATT was what, 2021?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
No, I mean, look at
wow.
what are we right now, starting early November, but last week Facebook would drop what 30%.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's real significant.
Yeah.
And who knows, in some ways, how they can recover, and they're making their strategic bet on Web3. We'll see.
Yeah. That would be a whole different, that would be a whole
Yeah,
different
right.
set of conversations. Hey, one of the reasons that I like the email as a space is, yes, it's one of the oldest of the digital marketing channels, but it has remained unowned. There's not a monopoly or a duopoly parked at the front end of email. There's a duopoly parked at the back end in inboxes and email clients, which frankly I don't think a lot of people are conscious of, but it's there, Google, Apple. But at the front end, for one of your customers to have an email program, like they can just go for it and do it. They probably use Klaviyo if you're in the Shopify ecosystem. There's kind of a strong relationship between those two companies, but they don't have to go pay someone or ask permission to tee up via email their outbound communication and relationship with people who've said, I like your products, I like your services, I will sign up. They don't have to keep paying for it either if that's working. If my hot sauce guy tees up an email newsletter about hot sauce, he's paying to send the email, but he's not paying someone else or competing in the market to outspend people in that email channel. And I do like that balance, that sort of fair playing field about
Yeah.
email. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, there's it's a never ending game of optimization, but it can become an evergreen
Oh yeah.
funnel in the sense of like, all right, if they have their paid ad strategy nailed down from different channels, go to this landing page, opt in, and then
Yeah.
their welcome flow, their benefits, features, it becomes a beautiful system
Yeah.
if you can scale it.
If you can scale it. Yeah. Yeah. And where I would see you helping, like say, helping with a number of things, but email programs specifically, knowing more about those customers is the maker or breaker of being effective with that longer term communication in email. And I think especially in text, which we talked about a little bit in before we turned on the record button here.
Mhm.
Let's jump there for just a second. Do you have anyone taking Prehook, quiz data and really directly shaping what they do in the SMS channel?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
A lot of brands. So SMS is different in the sense that it's a highly personal experience, and I've seen different stats, but maybe 90%
Yeah.
open rate, or
Yeah.
you're sending an SMS, it's going directly to the person's phone, which they are opening, hundreds of times a day.
Yep.
So you need to be very careful and thoughtful about it, which is where segmentation comes in.
Yes.
And so maybe you're using it less than email, but every message might have greater impact. And also you are there's a cost element as well, because every SMS message you're sending costs something
Yes, it
incremental.
does.
So you really don't want to just be blasting out to your whole list. So yeah, we're seeing a lot where the general flow of a quiz might be asking easier questions, because asking for an opt-in immediately, it might be a little off-putting, but like, hey Matthew, what type of what red or white wine, what do you like? Or
Yeah. Right.
easier questions. What's your name? Then maybe getting more to the meat of things, and then finishing the quiz with like, hey, where can we send your personalized recommendation, or where can we send you more information based off your quiz responses? So that's like kind of the email opt-in.
Yeah.
Then the hook for an SMS might be, join our community, or get X% off, whatever it is. But then that's where the quiz question will capture both an email and SMS, can capture an email and SMS.
Yeah.
And so our product integrates with Klaviyo and Omnisend, which are email and SMS platforms, kind of like the de facto for e-commerce brands. And then Attentive and Postscript, which are kind of the leaders in the SMS space for
SMS space,
e-commerce brands.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're doing tremendous ROI with SMS campaigns.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great channel.
I had a guest about a month ago, Scott Cohen, who was email marketer of the year last year, um, and he was talking about SMS, which is now in his sort of portfolio. And his comment, as I recall, was, "It is incredibly effective. It can be incredibly expensive. Like you really have to pay attention
Mhm.
to how often you're sending and what and why." And about a week after I chatted with Scott, I got an inbound text from a political campaign, and I know you spent some time in that world yourself. And the body of the text was 800 words, and there was a
Yeah.
picture on top of it. and, and I sent it to Scott. I said, "Just got this," and I think his response was, "Yeah, that was probably 11 or 12 cents just to send you that message."
Yeah. Yeah. Just for you to say unsubscribe or
Or,
no.
and it was a message like they spent 10 or 12 cents asking me for a $3 donation. And I was just running the math in my head going, whoa, the success rate better be pretty darn high
Yeah.
just to
Yeah, I
get
mean, I think that's
paid.
kind of like a universal marketing lesson is you need to be channel specific. You
Yeah,
you
you
can't
really do.
just kind of like copy and paste from one channel to the next or one, platform to
Yeah.
another.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't work. Well, wrap up here. Where do you see taking this venture of yours, you and your partners?
well, we're just going to kind of focus on growing it.
Hmm.
In terms of getting it in more people's hands, building out the feature set,
Hmm.
and then yeah, kind of like ultimately going up market in terms of Shopify Plus and
Okay.
some larger brands. So that's how we're trying to grow it. And so we're bootstrapping it, no outside funding, and that's kind of like the journey that we've or the path that we've chosen. And so we're hopefully going to just kind of take it as far as we can.
Yeah.
And there are definitely a lot of opportunities we see in terms of the customer data play for e-commerce brands and e-commerce enablement, SaaS tools
Yeah.
that we think we're well positioned in a good space.
Nice. Well, it sounds like an interesting ride. I love the bootstrap. I mean, Campaign Genius, our company, is bootstrapped as well, and that's a very different journey than backed and funded and answerable to investors for the speed of results and stuff like that. It's both are hard.
Hmm.
Making a new thing is hard, even if someone's backing you to make a new thing. But you can make some really personal decisions, I think, as a bootstrap about where do you want to take it and how fast.
So
So,
yeah,
yay, salute. I love talking to bootstrap guys because like we're all like, yeah, this is just right.
yeah, right,
And you have to learn how to do what? Yeah, someone's got to figure it out, right? No one's going to figure it out
exactly.
for you. I love it. Well, again, Furukawa, it's been a pleasure talking with you and an education, I must say. I appreciate you making the time.
Matthew, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, for anybody that's listening, please feel free to reach out directly again at prehook.com, GEN at prehook.com. Um, Happy to answer any questions regarding a quiz or point you in the right direction or help build out your quiz. But
Terrific. Thanks. We're out.
thanks, Matthew.